Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, bringing you this band-endorsed, fan-based podcast, going through every single song that the band recorded in the studio. And we are on the final track of Into the Wild, their 22nd album, which came out in April of 2011. And this song is called Hard Way to Learn. Now, if you were in Japan when this album came out and you got the album, this would have been the final track on the album as a standard track for you. If you were anywhere else in the world, this would have been a bonus track if you were able to find it. So mostly it would be people trying to hunt down a copy of the Japanese version. And, you know, by 2011, we had a lot of means to be able to do that. It wasn't like the 80s when you had to get these big, thick record catalogs to find out what all the releases were from a band and then try and, you know, send mail to places or call them and see if they had copies of something that they could reserve or send to you. Sometimes you had to send international money orders and wait months to get things. We had one shop that had a pretty extensive catalog. And we would go over to Canada from time to time. They were not too far over the border if you took the Ambassador Bridge from Detroit. And sometimes we could get a couple of rarities there. A lot of times it was special orders, just hunting things down. It was not that easy to do in the 80s. Come 2011, it was much easier once we had, you know, the internet and all the joyous avenues that you have on the internet. Nowadays, it comes down to two main places for me to try and hunt something down. Obviously, eBay is a great resource. The other one is Discogs. That's where I found a lot of the out-of-print deluxe CDs that I've used for this show. Into the Wild, however, I could not find anywhere except iTunes. And very strangely, it is missing now from the iTunes catalog. It is no longer there. Why? I don't know. I hope I'm not responsible for that. Very coincidental timing, just the same. But anyway, let's get into this song. This is the final track with our dear friend. It's sad to see him go, Trevor Boulder. This is the last album that he was on with Uriah Heep. And starting with the next album, we get Davey Rimmer, who is a phenomenal bass player. I've seen him play live. He's got so much energy on stage. He's just a great performer. And I am happy to see him be added to the band. While just like every other transition we had, I'm very sad about Trevor, but I obviously there's nothing that we can do to go and change yesterday. So we'll enjoy this final song with Trevor here, and we'll get into the life of Davey Rimmer next season. For now, let's check it out, folks. The final track from Into the Wild, Hard Way to Learn by Uriah Heep. It seems to me that when a song starts out with that kind of emotion in the guitar, you know, whether it be a long, sorrowful piece or, you know, something with a little bit of energy, it always seems like a solo from the guitar at the beginning of the song means that we're going to get a good story. And again, very much like Kiss of Freedom, it feels like one of those gather around the campfire kids where we're going to tell tales of days gone by. And it's cool, though. It's a great start. Again, we've got Russell riding the crash cymbal. We've got a really, really strong drum sound on this song. Great work by Mick on this. Nice backup from Trevor and from Phil. The song's heading in a good direction. I can see this being very much so far like Kiss of Freedom, maybe not as dark, but certainly has some similar elements right from the start. I also paused for a second while I was working on this episode because I wanted to double check iTunes. It's just bugging the hell out of me that Into the Wild is no longer there. So I went back, I went through my receipts. I did get the album on iTunes. I double checked, it is not there. However, what is there are a bunch of the deluxe editions are now available on iTunes. I've looked before. I saw a couple were there after I had found them on YouTube or either eBay or Discogs. And I thought, oh, that sucks. I wish I would have been able to buy them online because I could have had, could have gotten the band a couple of bucks. But I wouldn't have had the booklets, so that helped a little bit along the way. But you guys, for those of you that just, there are some people who refuse to do digital. I get it, but you don't have access to a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff was not released on vinyl or is going to be absolutely impossible to find on vinyl. So if you refuse to get digital 100%, then you're just not going to get these songs. If you do want the songs and you're willing to go the digital route, I could say go to iTunes. A lot of the deluxe CDs are there now. Double check the bonus tracks against the episode list for that season and make sure that it's the same deluxe edition. I imagine there are some bootlegs, a couple different versions of some of them. I noticed that some of the Japanese deluxe versions were a little bit different than some of the other deluxe versions. So again, make sure that you're getting the version that you want. The versions that I've used for every season of the show are the most comprehensive that I can find out there. I'm not saying I'm 100% right on that because there may be something I didn't see, but according to all the research that I did when I was setting up this show, which was quite a bit, the versions that I'm using are the most definitive and expanded versions of every album that we have gone over on the show. So that being said, it's kind of inspiring. I know some people have written and said, oh, I wish I could find this. I wish I could find that. I guess I'll just keep trying eBay. If you'll allow yourself the dirty deed of downloading a digital version of a song, then absolutely, by all means, go to iTunes right now. Well, I mean, listen to the rest of the show first, and then after that, go to iTunes, see if the ones that you want are there, and grab them. Because as I mentioned on the last show, God only knows how long they'll be available on iTunes. I still have no resolve on that issue. But that being said, let's get back to the song and find out what happens next as Bernie enters the stage.
I should have walked away when I lost faith, but I knew deep inside it was no disgrace. You see, sometimes in life you have to know your place, and it's a hard way to learn. I thought I was in control and all I had was saved, but there's no way I could know that the risk was too great.
This reminds me of something that would have been done by Bon Jovi in the late 80s, early 90s, somewhere in there. It's got a good story. It's got a good vocal delivery. The song is in no rush to get where it's going to go. It'll get there. It knows it. And we're just going to kick back and listen to the tale being told. I really like the gentle organ in the background. The simple guitar chords are really nice there. I also love that Russell's playing 16th notes on the hi-hat. That's nice. It's kind of the engine that keeps the song moving along. It's a little bit tricky when you have a slower song and you're known for being a little bit heavier and more aggressive to be able to keep the momentum of the song for your listeners because they're used to expecting a certain thing. So you could have a slower song, but to double the tempo on the hi-hats, that's actually really nice. That's kind of the steam engine that keeps the song moving forward.
You see, sometimes life takes you where you don't want to go, and it's a hard way to learn. It burns you out inside. There is no truth without lies. It takes your soul away, 'cause it's a hard way to learn.
I really love the intensity in Bernie's voice. It just brings out the story with so much more depth. I feel like he really experienced something here and he's pleading with us not to experience the same thing. That's what just the sound of his voice tells me. Really cool, though. I love the feeling of the story being told. I love the backing track here. I think that they're supporting the vocal very well. Playing stuff that feels, again, very big, like it's covering the wide expanse of the stereo spectrum, but also being very simple. And I think that's really cool when a band can do that. A lot of times it's like you want to add another layer and another layer and another layer to fill up the sound area. But these guys just do it without having to do that.
I watch the world go by from outer space, but there's nowhere left to hide in such a lonely place. And you see, sometimes you just have to know your place, and it's a hard way to love. It burns you up inside. There is no truth without lies. It takes your soul away, 'cause it's a hard way to love.
I love the subtleness of the chord changes. They don't, they're not abrupt. They don't take you away and go, wow, what just happened? They're very natural, and they make such a big difference being so slight. I really like that. I like Bernie's voice on this. I love the fill-ins from Mick. It's nice to get those again. Kind of been a while, I think, since we've heard some, but really cool to have back in. And I like that he's playing a higher note. He's playing above Bernie, and so it stands out a little bit more, but again, doesn't encroach on the vocals at all. It's very nicely done and very simple.
I'd swim an ocean, but I fear I'd drown, just to escape from this place I am bound. And nobody told me just how hard I would hit the ground. If I could leave, if I could only leave, I would leave right now.
Well, the quieter part of that had a nice 60s feel to it, didn't it? If there was a little bit of flange or something in there, it would have felt even more so. But it really just all of a sudden took me back to the 60s. As it built up, though, kind of brought me back more to modern times. But that first part was really, really different, very unexpected. Again, even through this album, 22 albums in, you still don't know where the band is going to go in a song. I love that magic. It's fantastic. But a really cool part nonetheless. And then a great, once again, great performance from Bernie on vocals, great support from the band here. I really like that Russell kept the 16th notes on the hi-hat through that. Really just kind of like, just chugs that song right along, which is great at a slower tempo. Really good song. It's got a really good feel to it. It feels kind of epic without it being epic. Great organ solo from Phil. Again, something we don't get to hear a lot of on this album, but that's 2 songs in a row. Kiss of Freedom had a nice organ solo in it, and very, very cool. This, again, he starts out with the quiet organ, adds a little grit as it goes along. The structure is very similar in a lot of ways to Kiss of Freedom, so I'll be curious to see where it goes. It's not quite as long. It's about half a minute shorter, a little more than half a minute shorter, but it definitely has a similar style to it.
It
really nice to get a couple seconds of Bernie's voice isolated from all other music. Most of the time, the best we get in terms of isolation would be when he's just opening the song with one other instrument or something like that. But that was nice, a nice unexpected surprise stop for the rest of the band, and then just a very smooth return of the music. Very, very nice. It seemed to be a little bit more subdued when it came back, but very nice. And here we get, some more of those interim fills from Mick, and they almost sound a little bit synthesized. So I don't know if there's maybe a slight flange on it or if he's doing something with the wah pedal perhaps, but it does sound a little non-standard guitar.
It's a hard way to learn. Such a hard way. Yeah. It's a hard way to
Such a gentle touch with those tones fading out at the end. Great song, great ending. That would be a good concert ending, or, honestly, another good ending to an album, much like Kiss of Freedom was. I think the thing is, for me, is that it was different because it didn't have the normal, let's do some craziness in the repetition of the chorus at the end of the song. There were no fills that made things feel off time. There was nothing aggressive about it. It really was just about the passion in the song and in the lyric. And I like that. I like having changes, things that are different. If every song had the same ending to it, then it would be predictable and boring and not Uriah Heep at all. Because the last thing that I could say that this band is predictable. But between the last two songs, either album ender, whether you have Kiss of Freedom as your last song or Hard Way to Learn as your last song, I think the two songs are very similar in a lot of ways. I could see either one of them being a great album ender. They're just different. Kiss of Freedom is a little bit darker. Hard Way to Learn is a little bit more just passionate, I think. I think Kiss of Freedom was passionate, but Hard Way to Learn just has a different level of vocal on it. But either one, I think great endings for an album, both of them. And I could see why either one of them was picked. But it's been a great time in season 22 reviewing Into the Wild. We've had some wonderful songs, a lot of aggressive stuff, and great drumming. You can definitely see the influence that Russell has had. We'll have to see what happens when we get to the next album and see what kind of influence Davey Rimmer has and how the band might change again. But this will be the current lineup. So we are caught up in members to where the band is now. And we'll get a couple albums out of them that have already been released while we wait for the new album to come out. As I am recording this in early January, I don't know when the album will be out. There's been no release date, nothing published at all from the band just yet. I would imagine they're still probably going over mixes and maybe mastering at this point. But in any case, it looks to be a good album. That'll be another one to review and another one to enjoy. But for now, that will close the door on Into the Wild, and that will open the door for the next one, The Outsider, and the entrance of Davey Rimmer. We will see you guys tomorrow for that very thing. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!